Good Thursday morning to you. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Michelle Beck.
Developing this morning, former Timberwolves star and current Portland Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups has been arrested in connection to a federal gambling-related investigation. Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier and former NBA player Damon Jones, who played for Cleveland, were also arrested. According to law enforcement, members and associates of organized crime groups are also among a few dozen people to two separate gambling-related investigations. Billups played for the Timberwolves in the early 2000s and was coaching last night for Portland in the team's season opener.
This morning, Minneapolis teachers begin voting on whether or not to walk off the job. That could happen in early November after the union and district failed to agree on a contract. Audrey Russo is at district headquarters with what that means.
You know, things are getting tense when the teachers union president says that the last negotiating session could have been an email. So today, 4,300 members of Minnesota Federation of Educators will vote on whether or not to authorize a strike. That is a process that takes about 3 days. So if the union votes yes, well, they then have to give the district 10 days notice before walking off of the job. That would time out to around early November, but this could all be resolved before any strike happens. The union tells us there's another mediation session scheduled 3 days after the strike vote ends on Monday. Parents in the district hope they can find a solution before their kids' education is impacted.
I believe that our school board, our leadership team, and our teachers union all have places where they can give a little so that we can get to something that works for students.
Now, the district sent us a statement saying that it is committed to reaching an agreement. The hang-up, though, it expects some dips in revenue in the coming years. Now, the union contends that the district should be spending the money it already has on investing in teachers. Back to you.
Well, this afternoon, a man charged with firebombing Fletcher's ice cream shop in Minneapolis will be in court for the first time. Fletcher's is on the city's northeast side near Hennepin and University Avenues. Police say Formosa Umar drove to the ice cream shop twice in a minivan, threw a Molotov cocktail through the window and left. According to charging documents, the minivan was registered to Umar and police matched his photo to surveillance video. When they arrested him, police say he had a gas can in the passenger seat. Officials haven't shared a motive, but the owner believes it may have been targeted for a pride flag hanging over the storefront. And new this morning, we are hearing from community leaders and activists in St. Paul addressing racist flyers. They gathered together last night for a conversation after the flyers were found in the Merriam Park and Hamlin Midway neighborhoods earlier this month. St. Paul police say those flyers targeted African Americans. Neighbors who attended the meeting say they are sickened by what happened.
It triggered me. It triggered me to immediately want to do something. Once again, what really pleased me is that in the neighborhood, everybody had the same reaction of how awful this was.
Yeah, the event also focused on bringing people together to respond with facts and connection rather than hate. A look from Washington, D.C. this morning on the 23rd day of the government shutdown. There is still no end in sight, and as we've been reporting, it is causing a great deal of stress for federal workers. Some help, though, could be on the way. Today, we are expecting the Senate to vote on the government spending measure for the 13th time because it already failed for 12. Despite disagreements there, Senate Republicans are telling Democrats to join them and vote to pay the Americans who keep us all safe. Now, they're referring to a bill by Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, which would pay the essential federal employees who are working without pay. Up for a vote this week, the bill faces opposition like what if it reduces the pressure to reopen the government? Now, as long as the federal government is shut down, Minnesota state officials say food stamps will not be issued for November. That notice went out this week to more than 10,000 SNAP recipients in Dakota County, according to hunger relief group Open Door. For those feeling worried or panicked, they write in a post they are working on a plan to meet the extra need this may cause. And new details this morning on a now canceled meeting between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump now says he doesn't think talks will lead to any peace resolution. Then he slapped Russia with new sanctions on oil exports. NBC's Alice Barr reports from Washington, D.C.
Hi there. President Trump has long threatened and then retreated from hitting Russia with new sanctions, preferring the carrot approach to try to bring Putin to the negotiating table, now turning to economic force. This morning, stalemate on stalemate, as President Trump announced a second planned summit with Russian President Putin aiming to end the war in Ukraine is off.
It didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel like we were going to get to the place we have to get.
While new sanctions are on against Russia's two biggest oil companies, the Treasury Department citing Russia's, quote, lack of a serious commitment to a peace process.
I think that they'll certainly have an impact. They're massive sanctions.
Lawmakers in both parties have long pushed for tougher sanctions, Republicans applauding the president's move.
You have to compel Russia to engage in the peace process. They've shown they cannot be trusted.
Democrats still pressing for the bipartisan sanctions bill that goes much further.
Well, until Trump decides that he's going to back the bill here in Congress that puts real sanctions on Russia, and until he decides he's going to get another round of weapons to Ukraine, it's a good day every day for Vladimir Putin.
The urgency is clear in a deadly week for Ukraine. Here, firefighters carrying children from the scene after Ukrainian officials say Russian strikes hit a kindergarten. President Putin also overseeing a nuclear exercise as President Trump met with the NATO Secretary General, who promised increased pressure from Europe, including the latest in a string of sanctions packages, in a joint bid to choke off Russia's economy and force Putin to the table. Administration officials tell NBC News a phone call between the Secretary of State and Russian Foreign Minister ended when Russia said fighting will continue until it gets concessions from Ukraine. Ukraine's president meeting today with European leaders in Brussels is reasserting that he will not give up territory to Russia. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Right now, the cost of homeowners insurance in Minnesota is skyrocketing. And yesterday, state lawmakers heard testimony about it. According to the Minnesota Realtors Association, the annual cost of insurance on a median-priced home has increased by $1,200 over the past 6 years. And that's due to a complicated web of factors, including the increased frequency of major weather events. The higher rates are having a big impact on lower-income families and first-time home buyers, squeezing some people out of the market.
First-time home buyers not being able to already afford what's on the market. High premiums are really hard with affordability, and in order to get them lower, they experience high deductibles.
A new task force heard the testimony. They'll meet for the next several months and give recommendations to the legislature on policy around rising insurance costs. And this morning, we are following a major state Supreme Court decision with implications on the future of transgender athletes in women's sports. The court ruled that USA Powerlifting discriminated against J.C. Cooper when it refused to let Cooper compete as a woman at 2 events in Minnesota in 2018. USA Powerlifting argued that Cooper, who was born a man and went through male puberty, had an unfair genetic advantage over biological women.
We won on public accommodations. There is this separate piece in any business claim that involves, you can discriminate in a sense if you have a legitimate business interest. But even if USA Powerlifting proved that they had one here, it would not unravel the win because public accommodations does not have that exemption.
Cooper's legal representatives are calling this a monumental decision with far-reaching implications. USA Powerlifting said it is disappointed in the ruling but will pursue the business purpose claim if the case is brought back to the Ramsey County courts. However, Gender Justice has to bring a claim to the district court, and it has not decided if that'll happen. For the first time in roughly 5 years, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office is back to being fully staffed, recently welcoming 99 new detention deputies to work in the jail. The boost in staff is leading the state to lift some restrictions on the jail, no longer requiring it to transfer inmates out of the county to other facilities. Last year, the Minnesota Department of Corrections placed the jail under special monitoring, citing staffing troubles and a failure to provide adequate well-being checks. Between September of last year to August of this year, the Sheriff's Office tells us the jail transferred more than 2,100 detainees to places outside of Hennepin County.
The job is simply more difficult than what it used to be. It has been stressful, so I'm glad we have turned the corner and we're doing better now.
And the sheriff says community outreach, expediting the onboarding process, and implementing a new training program have all led to more recruitment. This morning, Minneapolis leaders are asking for your help to keep the Bows of Love Memorial alive in honor of the victims of the Annunciation Church shooting. The city says a community group is collecting bows from around town with the intention of turning them into a future memorial. So if you have any of the blue and green ribbons near you, or you see them hanging on public property, city leaders are asking you to take them and reach out to Bows of Love on social media. The collection is going on till the 30th. This morning, we'll learn more about how the first week of testing went for the Green Line extension. The testing is happening all along the route from Eden Prairie to Minneapolis. Now, we reached out to the Met Council yesterday, and they tell us the first week was successful and they are on track to open it to passengers in 2027. They say developers have invested over $3 billion towards new housing, commercial and industrial development in the area. They are planning to invest another $700 million. Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.